Hi, this is element 4.2 of Unit 4, the challenges of traditional manufacturing. So, this particular video sits just after the introduction of the transformation of the traditional industry to smart industry. We're going to look at three different types of industry: manufacturing, retail, and finance. And we're going to break down each one of it by looking at the challenges of its traditional way of doing things and how it evolves into the smart way of doing things. So what are we going to look at here today is that we're going to identify the challenges and opportunities for the traditional industries in the digital economy and analyze these challenges and opportunities of the traditional transformation of the digital transformation of traditional industries in your country. So first off, I'm going to introduce what manufacturing is. Like most industries, manufacturing is a sector set to undergo enormous change. Before we can grasp this change, however, we must first understand some of the basics. Manufacturing can be defined as the creation of goods and which can be sold or bought leveraging manufacturing equipment and tools, human labor, and mix of manufacturing process. This is from Lily Ajay in 2019. Though there are many distinctive processes that manufacturers traditionally use, such as flow manufacturing, repetitive manufacturing, etc., there are only two major approaches to manufacturing that we are going to look at, which is one, discrete manufacturing and process manufacturing. Discrete manufacturing is a manufacturing process that can be described as a set of discrete, i.e. Explicit steps. Discrete manufacturing processes create distinct goods which can be easily identified and comprised of various parts. Now, in theory, the product can be broken down back into its original parts. Production generally requires a wide variety of separate parts rather than small number of large batches. So, for example, like assembling a car. Process manufacturing, however, is an approach whereby various materials are processed, typically via chemical conversion. Now, the result is a product in which the components which comprise it cannot be easily differentiated or broken down. The large number of batch ingredients which undergo chemical conversions, refinement, blending, and treatment are based on some form of formula or recipe. So, for example, like drugs or food. So, what has led to the decline of traditional manufacturing? First, the high competition. Manufacturing is becoming increasingly competitive, driven largely by globalization. Speed to market is increasingly paramount, and access to consumer data is also vital, leading many businesses to diversifying into new digital ecosystems. Standards for innovation are also on the rise, whether it is for their product services, uh, brand identity, and their business models. Secondly is uncertainty. Traditional manufacturing methods are also more vulnerable to fluctuations in economic and geopolitical climates. Periods of low consumption can be detrimental for cash flows. Now, we have seen this throughout the current US and China trade war, which has led to the closure of many manufacturing facilities in both China and US, and also the recent pandemic of COVID-19, which has crippled many economies and the closure of manufacturing and many businesses around the world. This speaks to the necessity of smarter, more efficient systems aimed to mitigate risk and minimize costs. Third is the tech advancements. Traditional manufacturing is characterized by having a higher reliance on human management and labor. As a new wave of smart technology takes hold, like for instance the integrated Internet of Things, affordable robotics, 3D printing, deep learning, and efficiencies and synergies are maximized while the efficacy of human labor diminishes. Lastly, it's the evolving consumers. As we looked at in the previous unit, consumers in general are becoming more sophisticated, making them increasingly complex to reach and engage with. And this is partly due to the increased accessibility of education and information, and partly due to rising living standards as demonstrated by both China and India's fast-growing middle class populations. With new retail developments dramatically raising consumer expectations for convenience, adopting a consumer-centric mindset is increasingly relevant even for consumers. So traditional supply chains are definitely not ready for the C2B model. Why? Because there's low visibility of traditional supply chain. People can't see what's happening behind the scenes. There's lack of risk control because when the supply chain or the process is threatened, it creates a domino effect to the whole system. Unable to tap into the global market if the supply chain is rigid and unable to open up. That is why you usually see people selling only to their own geographical location and unable to open up into other markets as well to encompass other sources of diverse cultures and also nations. Slow response to market with big layers of the bullwhip effect of traditional supply chain, you will notice that there is always going to be a slow response to market, and products which are not doing well in the market will take a long time to be retracted. There is lack of talent because people are all stuck in their ways and are unable to move away from their traditional way of doing things. And finally, it's difficult to maintain a low operating cost because of the same traditional methods that has been used. So, before I move on, I would like you to look at this particular video and a case study on how China manufacturing industry landscapes has changed by looking at the case of Taobao and how Taobao stays ahead from consumer internet to industrial internet. Now, you can view the video either on the Padlet, which I have put up. So scan the QR code or go to the Padlet with this particular password. Now, I would like to talk to you a little bit about China's industrial internet. Why it still lags behind developed markets. For example, China is highly willing to digitalize its manufacturing, but still has a lot to catch up. So just take a look at these three countries, China, Germany, and America. Now, this is from the Digital Information Institute on smart factories. So each country actually has its own plans to digitalize their factories. But as you can see here, Germany and USA have almost doubled their capacity to digitalize their factories as compared to China. So what is the root cause? Well, it is because the digitization of upstream manufacturing is highly dependent on the overall development of manufacturing industry. Now, looking at the graph on the left, you'll be thinking that China as a hub of manufacturing would be outperforming countries like Germany. But the real reason is that manufacturing value added as a percentage of total manufacturing must be part of it in terms of turnover. And Germany outbeats China in terms of manufacturing by more than 15%. So China needs to develop high-end manufacturer further and improve the industrial information technology through penetration of industrial software as an example. For America, their estimated penetration of key industrial software in the US is about 50 to 60%. Where does China fall in this? Well, for their product data management is only about 41%, or product life management. Their supply chain management is only about 34%, and their customer relationship management is only about 33%. So it's not really up to the par. So another problem is that Chinese companies have a tendency to focus more to the downstream consumer side, resulting in slow digitalization of the upstream production side. In a survey of 148 manufacturing industries experts in 6 countries, they were asked, what do you think of the commercial opportunities of Industry 4.0? We're just going to look at the difference between Germany and China. Now, in China and versus Germany, expansion of product portfolio, an average of 43%, 24% above the average were in favor in China, but only 7% were above in favor from the average, above of the average from Germany. So 24 plus 43%, that's about 67% of those in China manufacturers said that there is hope for expansion of product portfolio. Next, we talk about better customer service. China again says that there is more expansion for better customer service, which is 8% above the average. Now, moving on to the upstream production side, however, you notice that Germany actually has 15% higher than the average, which is 4% more, but China was below average. That is why they only focus on downstream rather than the upstream. Also, another problem is that Chinese SMEs have a shorter lifespan. They may face challenges because if you notice that Japan is 4 times more of the lifespan of the SMEs as compared to China. In this graph you see here, Japan is 12 years and China's average lifespan of an SME is only 2.9 years. The other challenges faced by Chinese SMEs are funding pressures. Capital gaps SMEs contribute only about 60% of GDP, but account for only 25% of total bank loan balance. They are less adaptive to the economic environment. There are low profit margins because average profit margins is about 3 to 5% among small and medium manufacturers in China. And they are sensitive to taxation and supporting policies, which means tax to profit ratio remains high. Finally, they are also business environments needs to be improved. Services provided to SMEs must be improved. For example, only 21.4% of Chinese enterprises have credit info records. So what does this mean? This means that especially increasing in labor costs, this has put a lot of pressure on the Chinese SMEs. If you look at the case of China's labor costs, it has increased dramatically, exceeding many developing nations, including Vietnam and Mexico, as a comparison. The average annual salary in manufacturing sector, in terms of USD thousands, has increased from 2.9 thousand in 2007 to about 9,900 in 2017, as opposed to 4,800 in 2017 for Vietnam and 7,900 for Mexico. So this is actually an increase of 13% in a span of 10 years. Now that is a large increase. So by understanding these problems, the next video we're going to look at is, what are the smart manufacturing initiatives that China has put in place that we as the world can learn from? Thank you very much.